Hi, good afternoon, everyone. If you can hear me and you could see the screen, just say good afternoon in the chats, and we're going to begin shortly. All right, so I'm seeing some persons, so just waiting for everybody else to send their message. Last week, we touched on 75% of functions. And so today we're going to do the last topic that we didn't get to touch, and then we're going into graphs. And then the second half of class, we're going to just practice past paper questions. So you guys know you need your calculator. You need something to write and probably jot down your notes because we're going to get started right now. So let's go. So today's topic is composite functions. So even before we get into composite functions, I wanted to just quickly recap a basic concept that we're going to need for composite functions. So if you guys are ready, say ready in the chat and we're going to jump right into it. So I just need everybody to, indicate that you're ready to go. Okay, so that's 2 persons, 3. Once I see majority, I will get started as 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. Okay, guys. So this one, I need everybody to try this question for me. This is a standard functions question. Once you can do it, it means that we're ready for the second part, okay? So f of x is equal to 2x plus 1. I need you to tell me the answer for f of 3. Let's go. What's the answer for f of 3? Keep it in mind, f of x just tells us the instructions that we need to follow. And everywhere we see x, we have to substitute the value. And so in this example, everywhere we see x, we're going to replace it with 3. So what is the answer once we substitute 3 into the equation? So I see 3 persons sent their answers. Let's go. Anybody else? Remember, at the end of the day, you have to be able to get an answer, even if it's wrong. All right, so let's take a look and see what you should have done. So to get your full marks, obviously, you write back your equation. The only difference is instead of the x, we're going to replace the x with 3. So you should have 2, replace the x with 3, and everything else goes back, plus 1. You should know what this means. Brackets mean to multiply. So 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 1, our answer is 7. So it means then we understand the basic concept of finding the value of a given function. So today, our topic for today is composite functions because we did inverse. I hope y'all remember the inverse, but we're going to practice that a little later. So this is our focus for the next 10 to 15 minutes. Composite functions. Composite functions just simply means a function inside of a function. Now, most students kind of struggle with this one because this is one of the more difficult versions of the question. So today, I'm going to try to break it down as easy, the easiest that I can, and hopefully everybody should be able to mash up these questions. So it's a function inside of a function. What do I mean by that? If we go back to our previous example, what do you realize? F of 3 just means everywhere we see x, we replace it with 3. And so if we're going to look at now a function inside of a function, let's look at some examples. So if I say, for example, a f of g of x, usually what we are accustomed of seeing, we are accustomed of seeing f of x. So we know what is the most important thing that we're substituting here is x. But with a composite function, you realize instead of x, what is inside of f? An entire function itself. Everybody see that? So in this case, who is inside of who? G is inside of f. So if I give you another example, let's say B. Suppose I give you G f of x. In this one, guys, who is inside of who? Is G inside of f or f inside of G? Who is inside of who? F inside or G inside? Okay, seeing some answers. Anybody else? That's why we having this discussion, because if we don't know this answer, we cannot continue. So who comes first? I usually like to call it the mother and the baby. The one that comes first is the mother. So obviously that's the bigger one. The one that comes second is the baby. So obviously the baby is inside of the mother. So who is inside of who? F inside G. No, sometimes they give you different formulas to represent this. I just want to make sure I give you all the examples. So sometimes they won't even put the X. Sometimes they might give you this. HF. If they give you HF here, who you think inside of who? Keeping in mind, the first one is always the mother function. The second one is the baby function. So who is inside of who for this one? Excellent. F inside of H, right? Let's try one more. D. Suppose I gave you this one. GF. Who is inside of who? Okay, I seen person sending F inside. Everybody else agree or disagree? Don't forget, your responsibility is to just respond, participate by answering the questions. So I'm going to ask it again. Who is inside of who in this example? Excellent. F is inside of G. Now we're going to take it another notch. Suppose I had this one. E. F square. Now, in this case, guys, right, the square has a little different meaning. Obviously, what does it mean? It means two F's in it. So anytime you see F square, it just means double F. And this just means what? They put F inside of F, which is possible. Everybody with me? So obviously F, let's do, if I had G square, so it could look like this as well. This just simply means G, which is the same thing as G of X. All of these three things have the exact same meaning. So everybody understand the square part, who inside of who? It just means F inside itself, G's inside itself. So if you got it, say got it. Once everybody let me know that they're okay with the meaning, we can move on to now practicing some actual questions. So I'm looking at the chat. Talk to me. Let me know if you understand the notation. This is what we call function notation. So we're going to jump into our first example. So we're going to start easy, obviously, and then we're going to go into harder questions. So examples. This would be example 1. So I'm going to give you some functions. F of x equal to 2x plus 1. G of x is equal to 5x. Yeah, let's keep it simple. No, they're gonna ask, find, first of all, f of g of x. So the first thing you need to identify is who inside of who. So quick question, who is inside of who? G inside of f, good. Now, since f is the mother function, you're gonna write that first. So I'm gonna say, since f of x, and you write what f of x is. What is f of x? Look it up here. F of x is this. So f of x means 2x plus 1. So if that's what f of x mean, then f of g of x means what? Instead of having x, what am I going to replace x with in all of g of x? So that means I'm going to replace x with g of x. So I'm going to write 2, and then I'm going to write g of x plus 1. So before I move on, everybody understand what I did here? Remember, usually we always replace x with a number, but in composite functions, you're replacing x with an entire other function. So you're not going to use a number now. You're going to replace the x with an actual function. So that's all I did. I replaced the x with g of x. Now, our second step would be g of x have a meaning. What does g of x mean? Doesn't g of x mean 5x? So the next step is just to replace g of x with what g of x represent. So pull back the 2, pull back the open bracket, and replace g of x with 5x. And then you pull back the 1. No, we know in maths, do we ever leave anything like this? We don't ever leave our answer with brackets. What does brackets mean, everybody? Talk to me. Brackets mean to do what? Multiply. So it means we need to say what? 2 times 5x is 10x. And then we put back the plus 1. And guess what? That's our answer. So f of g of x is equal to 10x plus 1. No, be honest with me. Even if you don't remember everything that I did you understand the steps as I came down? Yes or no? Let's go before I move on to the next example. Because I try to break it down as easy as I can. Right? Okay. All right. So let's look at a next example. Let's look at g of f of x. What does this one mean? Who inside of who know? You realize now, g is the mother function, and now f is the one that going inside of g, right? So we start off with writing the first one, the mother function. So we're going to say, since g of x, what g of x mean? G of x mean 5x. You realize me ain't trying to skip no steps because obviously we need to make sure we understand step by step. So g of x is equal to 5x. So they didn't ask us for g of x, they ask us for g of f of x. So that means we're replacing x with f of x. F of x got meaning, right or wrong? What does f of x mean? So we're replacing the x with f of x. So let's do that. 5, instead of the x, we change f of x. Put it in the brackets because you know it means something. So let's go down. What does f of x stands for? Put back the 5. F of x stands for what? In 2x plus 1. So in the brackets, we put 2x plus 1. And from here is just algebra. What do I mean by algebra? We just multiply out the brackets, right? And there are two things inside here. So it's going to be 5 times 2x plus 5 times 1. Let's write that out. 5 times 2x plus 5 times 1. So what is my final answer? 5 times 2x is 10x plus 5 times 1 is 5. So therefore, because that's what these 3 dots mean, and let me let y'all know. The exam markers love when you break down every step and at the end you state your final answer. So that's why we always say, therefore, our final answer, g f of x is equal to, and we should remember the rules. I can't add these two things. They're two different things. So our answer is 10x plus 5. Everybody see how we did that? It's so easy that is, to be honest, if you really break it down and take your time. Now, obviously, these two examples are very easy because of the type of equations they gave you, because they have harder equations than these. But how are we feeling out of 10 with the understanding? Because we're going to take it up a next level. So talk to me quickly. How do we feel out of 10 understanding wise? So I know if I could take it up, if everybody ready for harder levels. Okay. Noted. Okay. Also, please note that if you know your algebra is not strong, go and look at the other recordings. So I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm not going to be going through things like 10x plus 5 is why this is just the answer. So if you know, you don't know why I can't add this, you need to go back to the other videos and refresh your algebra skills. Okay. All right. So let's go into, I'm looking. All right. I'm taking note of what I'm seeing. So let's take another easy example before we move on. So let's look at this one. Example 2. So I'm going to give you f of x is equal to x plus 2. And g of x is equal to 3x plus 1. So first of all, everybody should see the two functions we have is what? F of x and g of x. So this question A is going to be find f of g of x. Let me write it like how the exam would write it. The exam would write it like this. F of g of x. When you see this, you know what this means, right? So first question for everybody. Who is inside of who? Who is inside of who? Is f inside of g or g inside of f? So I see g in f, g inside. Okay. Okay, I see and I'm watching. I want everybody to make sure you tell me which one is inside. Okay, good. Very good. So since G is on the inside, that means F is the mother function, right? So which one you're going to write first? Exactly. This is literally like substitution. Instead of substituting a number, you're actually just substituting an entire equation inside of an equation. That's why we call it a function inside of a function. Yep. So, all right, everybody, which one should I write first? Should I write the F first or the G first? Very good, because that's the one that comes first. The function in front is the mother function. So I am going to say, since f of x, write it out, what f of x mean? F of x means up here, it tells us x plus 2. Because this is the guidelines. This is going to tell us where we need to start. So since f of x is x plus 2, then we could create this one. Then f of g of x. No, just take a pause here. Inside here, we have x. But inside here, what do we have inside here? In g of x. So that means what? Everywhere we see a x, we're going to replace it with g of x. So let's go. The first thing we see here is x in it. So instead of the x, what are we going to write? G of x. And what do we have left back? Plus 2. Right? So what is my next step now? My next step is to write what g of x mean. What is g of x? If we go up here, g of x means what? 3x plus 1. So we're replacing what g of x means. So all we're going to write now is the meaning of g of x, which is 3x plus 1. And I hope everybody see what I mean. Look where g of x is and we'll look at what it means. It's always going to be at the top of the question. So all I did was replace this with this. Now I need to put back the rest. What's the rest? Plus 2. Everybody see that? No. Based on our algebra rules, can I add anything here? Yes, the only thing I could add is our constants. So I could add 1 plus 2 because they are like terms. I can't add nothing to 3x because I have no more x's to add to it. So 3x is unchanged, but we know 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. If you got it, say got it. Because all I'm going to be doing is practicing questions before we move on. Let we go. I see 4 got it. Let's go talk to me. Is either got it or don't got it. Now let's move on to the next version of it. Let's look at g of f of x. Let's go again. Which one should I write first, everybody? Who comes first? Who should I write first? So since what? Simone says G. Is that true? Let's go, guys, because you have to be able to know what your first step is. What should I write first? It's going to be G come first, right? So you're going to say since G of X, and then you're going to write what G of X mean. What does G of X mean? 3x plus 1. Then we're going to say then we could find G of f of x. So G of f of x means everywhere we see x, we replace it with what? F of x. So there's going to become 3 f of x plus 1. Because all I did here was what? Replace x with f of x. So what's the next step now? The next step is to write what f of x means. What does f of x mean? Look at the top here. F of x means x plus 2. So we're going to put back everything. 3, what was in the brackets? X plus 2. And then we put plus 1. Here, you realize it's different because now we have brackets, and brackets mean to multiply. So we go 3 times x plus 3 times 2. And so we have here 3 times x plus 3 times 2. And then we put back the plus 1. 3 times x is 3x plus 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1. Again, I could only add the 6 and 1. So our final answer is 3x plus 7. Everybody feeling a little better now? As we move through the examples, you realize it's the same steps over and over. The substitution, because we're getting into harder questions. So if you're good to go, say good to go. We're going into a harder question next. I'm watching the board because now we're actually going to do a full CXC question. And if we could answer all of this, guys, to be honest with you, if we could answer all of this, we are done with functions and we could move on into the graphs. So this next question, guys, is going to include every single thing that we've done so far, including composite functions. So I'm going to write out the questions and I need you guys to be a part of the working. So what I would recommend you guys to do, I need y'all to copy this in your book, this entire question in your book. So this is a practice question. Let f of x equal 2x minus 1. G of x equal x plus 2. Sorry, I don't know. G of x equals x plus 2. And h of x equal 3x plus 1. You know why all of these are easy? All of these are easy because they're linear. Everybody know why did we call these equations linear? Because if you look at the powers 1, the powers of all the x's is 1. Another thing you need to look at is that there's no fraction version happening. So it's not like you have 2x minus 1 over x or something or some number. So that's what makes it easy. Okay, so our next questions will be fraction versions. But for now, this is what we're working with. How many functions did I give you guys here? That's a question for everybody. How many functions do you see here? Excellent. Good. We have a F, we have a G, we have a H. One of the most important things is to make sure that you always go back to the top. You always make sure you write the right numbers for the right functions, okay? So these are the questions we're gonna answer this afternoon. We're gonna find f of h of x. We're gonna find g of f of 2. C, we're gonna find g squared of negative 1. D, we're gonna find h squared of negative 3. We're gonna find f squared of 0. And because I believe in doing a hard question, a very hard question, A, B, C, D, E, F, I want us to try this one. And then H, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then I want us to find f of g of h of 2. All right, so let me know when y'all finish copying down these questions by saying done. Don't panic, don't panic, don't panic. Obviously, I will not let you not be able to answer these questions. We have to practice the hard questions. So that's all I need you to do. You have to have these examples in your book. So just copy them down and we're going to work through them one by one. Do not panic. Similarly, just like how there are composite functions, there are composite inverse functions, and we're going to make sure we touch on that as well. Just waiting for a few more people to finish. No, I got some of these examples here I have not done, right? But question, do you feel like you would be able to handle these questions? All right, so let's go together. We're going to go through question number 1. So let's start off with that one. Do you think you could answer A? So A asks us to find f of h of x. So I need everybody to tell me yes or no if you think you could answer this one. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Okay, I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes to try this one. Try this one for me by yourself. See how far you can get. So everybody should be writing using a pencil preferably. Try to see if you can find f of h of x. What I am going to do is silently start working it out on the board. So if you are stuck, you could look and see where you can move on. Some persons are already sending their answers. Excellent. I need to see everybody making an effort. Okay. So send me an answer when you think you have it.